In this sketchbook activity, I'll need a couple different supplies to make my drawing. First, I'll need a sheet of white paper. It can be loose or it can be in your sketchbook. I'll need an ebony pencil, like so. If I don't have an ebony pencil, I can also use a regular pencil. I also at some point will be using a straight edge or a ruler. And for the duration of the project, I will also need a knot that has been chosen, preferably white fabric. To start this drawing, I'm going to start in the middle, drawing kind of the center part of the knot that I see here. A couple things to point out as you are finishing the line drawing. Notice how I tried to keep my knot in the center of my drawing. Notice how I also made my knot big enough so that it would touch two sides of my paper. One side here and one side here. Part of the reason for doing that is to make sure that your knot is large enough so you can go ahead and add the details and add the shading, which I'll do next. I also want to point out as you're drawing, notice how some of my lines are very dark, and as they get progressively moving to another part, they get lighter. I lightly pull my pencil off the paper, and that produces a very light quality line. Once I've done the line drawing, the next step is going to be adding value. As you can see here in this drawing, I have started the process of adding value to my piece. Some of these spaces here and some of these spaces here. I'm looking for the parts that have a lot of black or a lot of dark areas, and that's part of the reason why I'm using a white fabric. Those will be much easier to see with a white fabric than they would be if I had another color like black or even blue. After I do all the shadow, one thing I can start to do is I can draw the horizon line. In this case, this is where I'd use my straight edge or my ruler. I drew a line back here behind my knot, making it look as though the knot was actually sitting on a table or it was sitting on something rather than just floating in space. The last steps are to, after you add some shadow to the knot, to add some shadow to the rest of the piece, like shadows underneath, shadows within the knot itself. Once you've done some of that, the knot will really start to stand out from the paper and it will look a lot more three-dimensional. One thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to do something like has been done here. In this case, I drew my knot, and when I drew the knot, you'll notice that the knot has only touching one side, it doesn't touch the other side. It's not quite big enough. It's a good drawing, but it doesn't quite follow the rules that the sketchbook activity is asking you to follow. So at the end of the project, you should have something look somewhat like this. If you do not have a fabric from Mr. NewTek that I didn't supply, you can certainly take and put a knot in any fabric that you may have.